Let's talk about the actual architecture of our minds. Not just what we're thinking, but how our thoughts flow, how they take shape. We're going to explore a new way to actually map that incredible landscape inside our heads.
I mean, really think about it. That feeling when you're laser focused on a tough problem, it's a completely different world from when you're just, letting your mind wander on a walk, right? And both of those, they're nothing like the bizarre, almost story-like logic of a dream. So what gives? What's actually changing inside our brains?
Right, so that's the big mystery we're going to try to unpack here. We'll look at these three totally different flavors of thought and see how a fascinating new model helps explain what's really going on behind the scenes.
It really does feel that way, doesn't it? It's like you've got this focused, rational mind that, gets stuff done. Then there's the imaginative, wandering mind that comes up with all the cool, creative ideas. And then there's the dreaming mind, which just plays by its own set of rules. They feel like completely separate people, but they're all living in the same brain.
Okay, so how do we get a handle on this? Well, let's bring in a really cool new way of thinking about it. It comes from something called the Brain Kinematics Model. We'll just call it BKM. And get this, instead of just using words, we're going to use geometry to actually visualize the flow of our thoughts. So when you're really concentrating, your thoughts act like a laser. Super precise, right? It's linear, it's totally goal-oriented. It just cuts straight through all the noise to get to an answer, ignoring everything else. That's your mind in its high-energy, problem-solving gear. But what happens when you let go a little bit? When you're daydreaming? Well, that laser beam softens into a river. See, it's still moving forward, but now it meanders. It's exploring the scenery, following interesting little curves, picking up new ideas from the riverbanks. This kind of semi-linear associative flow, that's where so much of our creativity comes from.
And then there's dreaming. In this state, your thoughts are like a swirling eddy in that river. There's no clear forward motion at all. Instead, your thoughts just spiral around these local points of interest, getting pulled in by really strong emotional currents. And that's exactly why dreams feel so intense and sometimes circular, You keep coming back to the same themes over and over, just in different ways.
Okay, so that's the what, a laser, a river, an eddy. But what about the why? What's actually causing these different flows? Well, according to this BKM model, it all boils down to the way two fundamental building blocks of thought interact with each other. Let's dig into those. So the model says our thinking is basically built from two things. On one side, you have signs. These are the tools of pure, cold logic. And on the other side, you've got symbols. These are the carriers of deep, rich emotion. It's the constant dance, the shifting balance between these two, that literally shapes the geometry of how we think. So what's a sign? Think of it as a piece of information that's had all the emotion wrung out of it so you can use it for pure reasoning. Like the letter A or the number 7, they're just abstract tools. They don't really make you feel anything, right? They help you think clearly. This is the language of that focused, laser beam mind we talked about. A symbol, on the other hand, is all about emotional weight. It acts like a little center of gravity for feelings and memories. It's an image or an idea that packs a huge emotional punch. Think about a really powerful image from a dream, like, say, a falling crown. It's not just an object, right? It's loaded with meaning about power or loss or maybe disappointment. And this is where it gets really cool, because you can actually see this transformation from symbol to sign happen in the real world. Just look at the history of our own alphabet. The letter A started out as a pictogram of an ox head, a very concrete, symbolic image. But over centuries, it got simplified, abstracted. It lost that picture form to become a leaf, and then eventually the pure abstract A we use for logic today. It literally went from being a heavy symbol to a lightweight sign. Okay, so let's recap. We've got our flows, the laser, the river, the eddy. And we've got our building blocks, signs and symbols. Now let's put it all together and see how this framework just perfectly maps onto those three main ways our minds work. And this table just lays it all out so clearly. Check it out. When you're focused, the BKM says you're using mostly signs, which gives you that linear, laser-like shape. And guess what? That lines up perfectly with what psychologists call System 2 thinking and what neuroscientists see when the executive control network lights up. Then you shift to daydreaming. Now it's a mix of signs and symbols, creating that meandering river shape. And yep, that maps right onto the brain's default mode network. Finally, in dreams, it's all symbols.
That's what creates the spiraling eddy, which corresponds to massive activity in the limbic system, your brain's emotional core. It all just clicks. Yeah, this idea of different brain networks is totally central to the model. Each state of mind is basically run by a different dominant network. High focus, that's your executive control network calling the shots. Daydreaming, that's the default mode network's playground. In dreaming, that's powered by the raw emotional energy of the limbic system. So the model, in a way, is giving us a geometric language to describe what neuroscientists are actually seeing on brain scans.
So what's the big deal? Why does this all matter? I mean, what does this new map of the mind actually give us? Why is it so powerful to think about our own minds in terms of geometry and physics?
Well, what makes this model so special is that it gives us a really intuitive language, laser, river, eddy, to talk about our inner experiences. It goes beyond just putting labels on things and starts to explain why they feel so different, using ideas from flow dynamics. It gives a real structure to our emotional world by defining symbols as these gravity centers. And best of all, it connects this whole framework back to something measurable, the energy levels in our brain.
And here's a really important takeaway. Even when we're in our most logical, science-driven state of mind, that laser focus, there's always an undercurrent of symbolic emotional meaning. That rational laser beam is never totally free from the gravitational pull of our emotional symbols. The two are always in conversation with each other. So I'll leave you with this. Right now, as you're thinking about all this, what shape is your thinking taking? Is it a laser, totally focused and linear? Or has your mind started to drift into a meandering river? Maybe there's a little eddy swirling around one of these ideas that really struck you. For the first time, you actually have a map to figure it out.